Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the news that Rishi Sunak is set to approve Boris Johnson's resignation honours list in full, even though it's fairly, well, it's not that extensive, I suppose, compared to others, but will trigger two potentially damaging by-elections for the Conservatives and for Rishi Sunak personally. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So the way this is being reported is that Sunak is giving the all clear to Johnson's 50-strong resignation honours list. We're told to be thankful because it used to be 100. In order to calm down tensions between the two of them, he is presumably agreeing to it as a quid pro quo. I'll authorise these honours and in return you stop being a ball ache. In other words, Sunak is attempting the time-honoured tradition of appeasement because, you know, that always works out well. The news is that Alex Sharma and Nadine Dorries, who are two of the four sitting Tory MPs that Boris Johnson has recommended for peerages, will stand down in order to take up their seats in the House of Lords. That will trigger two by-elections. Johnson, as I say, had nominated four MPs, but two of them have apparently said that they will not be standing down before the election, so they will effectively be turning them down. So two by-elections. Could be worse for Sunak. I suppose it could have been four, in theory. Labour will target Sharma's seat, certainly, and will almost certainly win it. I would have thought the Lib Dems would target Nadine Dorries' seat, because in theory, Mid-Bedfordshire it's a safe seat for the Tories, but don't be surprised if they lose it. Not only are the Tories making a right mess of their campaigns, all they've basically got is Greg Hands going around with that joke note, but they would have... They will have to definitely fight hard in both those by-elections, so splitting their resources between two seats, whereas if Labour go for one and Lib Dems the other, Labour can focus on just one seat, the Lib Dems can focus on just one seat. You know, besides, it's doubtful that any seat at the moment is really safe for the Tories in a by-election. But I sound some hesitancy on the Lib Dems having a go at Mid-Bedfordshire because the Times is talking about Labour potentially having a crack at it. That seems odd to me. That seems odd. But we shall see. We're going to find out. And consider how Sunak's opponents within the Conservative Party and wider movement will react if he loses two by-elections in a single day, especially with one of them being considered safe. Sunak is potentially making a serious error here. He's certainly making a rod for his own back. It will, at the very least, cause unnecessary distractions. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't see how he could just reasonably block the entire honours list. People have been saying we should just block the whole list. I can't really think of an argument for doing so. Like, I don't think resignation honours lists should exist at all. But given that they do, and given that they have done for a very long time, I can't think of an objective reason to block this one other than Boris Johnson's an arsehole. That's, you know... Because what would be the reason? Because Boris Johnson is a disgrace, so he shouldn't have an honours list? Well, you'll always find a large pool of people saying that about any retiring Prime Minister. Because his appointments are unsuitable? Again, some would say that about all honours. There are very few honours given that are universally popular. But Sunak could have at least taken exception to some of the individual cases. Some of them are sort of beyond the pale. You're not supposed to give a knighthood to your dad, for goodness sake. He certainly could have taken exception to having sitting MPs elevated to the House of Lords because that was easy to deal with. He could have said, look, I'm going to block these appointments, but I will promise to initiate them myself after the next election. Because after the next election, either Rishi Sunak is still Prime Minister, in which case he can elevate them to the House of Lords, no problem. Or he's not Prime Minister because he's lost, which is actually what's going to happen, in which case he can just promise to put them in his resignation honours list and save himself the agony of these unnecessary by-elections. But no, he's given in to all of the appointments in the hope that Johnson is satisfied and behaves himself. If this is the correct reading of this move from Sunak, then he is a fool. Boris Johnson only cares about one person, Boris Johnson. He doesn't care about the people whom he has nominated for honours. He's just rewarding his loyal stooges. But he would feed them all to hungry lizards if it was the way to get what he wanted. Boris Johnson is the sort of man for whom the phrase "would sell his own grandmother" was invented. Boris Johnson wants one of two things to happen in the immediate future. His first preference is to be made Prime Minister again. Failing that, his plan B is to burn down the party which spurned him. Even if there has been some communication, there's not been direct communication between Sunak and Johnson, I gather, but there has been some communication between the two groups. So even if there's been that communication and Johnson has sort of promised, no doubt with his fingers crossed behind his back, to behave in return for these honours being passed, you would not believe him. Johnson places no value on even his own word. We've seen that. If at any point Johnson decides that he would like to cause further damage to the Conservative Party out of spite or for whatever other reason, whether it be in the next year, the next month, or even the next 5 minutes, he will not hesitate to do so. He will not pause because Sunak has done him this favour. In fact, such is Johnson's raging sense of entitlement. He will simply view this move by the Prime Minister as being because Sunak has seen sense rather than an olive branch. Sunak must be absolutely mad. As if he doesn't have enough problems. The government have announced that there's no real business in the House of Commons today, nor is there going to be very much next week. This is not the schedule of a government with lots of ideas to govern. They're trying to claim, oh, we've got lots of plans. Labour have got no plan. We've got lots of plans. Where are they then? You're in government. Parliament's sitting. Why aren't they doing it? Why aren't you presenting your business to Parliament so they can consider it? MPs are filling in the time today by asking if the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, will come to the House to correct the record on her latest lies. Polling continues to show the Conservatives being on course for a right hammering. Penny Mordaunt, one of the few Tories who turned up today, leader of the House, gave a bizarre statement in Parliament. She said that every Conservative government has left the country in a better state in which it found it. Bizarre not just because it's so objectively untrue, but because it makes no sense to make such a statement, whether true or not, unless you think your party is coming to the end of another period of government. Combined with the lack of parliamentary business more than a month before the summer recess, and it is the clearest sign yet that the Tories have just given up. And if Sunak really does want to make a fight of next year, it is not immediately obvious how he is to do this by failing to present government business to Parliament to debate and by triggering two unnecessary and very tricky by-elections in order to placate a political enemy who will, in practice, I mean, all it's going to do is give that political enemy more ammunition to use against him in due course. And this is without taking into account the fallout if Boris Johnson is suspended for at least 10 days by the Privileges Committee. You know, I know I keep saying we should be expecting it soon, but we should be expecting that soon. Whatever appeasement this move on honours Sunak thinks he's buying, how on earth does he imagine Johnson's going to react when Sunak refuses to whip his MPs to vote against the Privileges Committee punishment? This is absolute insanity. Is there no political decision, no matter how simple, that Sunak can get right? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.